We had a question about quarterback battles, so I wanted to dive into this a little bit. Quarterback battles all across the country. We just came out of spring practice, had spring games, and we were talking, you and I, all throughout spring about some of these quarterback battles going on across the country. And so what I wanted to do is take a couple of minutes here and just recap where we're at right now. Because a lot of these quarterback battles are still ongoing. They are legitimate, authentic in nature, and they're going to play a large role in some of these conference races, maybe even playoff races. So let's start at LSU, and I'm just going to go around the whole country here. Miles Brennan, Jaden Daniels, Garrett Nussmeier going into spring practice. Brian Kelly's first in Baton Rouge. It was thought, I would say by a mild consensus of people, that Jaden Daniels, the Arizona State transfer, was the leader in the clubhouse. We didn't necessarily believe that on this show, but I think most people believe that. Coming out of spring, I don't think people believe that down there. He's just another player in a crowded quarterback room. He's got probably as good a shot as Miles Brennan or Garrett Nussmeier. I'm going to give you my take on this, and it's just reiterating, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. If they played a football game tomorrow, I think Miles Brennan would be your starter. They don't. And so there's still a summer, and then there's still fall. Jaden Daniels could make a move, but the guy at the bottom of your screen, if you're watching on YouTube, Garrett Nussmeier, that's the guy that if I had to circle one from now until the fall that is poised to make the biggest move, it's Garrett Nussmeier. Wouldn't stun me at all. Even if he doesn't start the season opener, if he's not your starter by, let's say, the first week in October. So our Cooper Pategna the other day put an over-under of 2.5 total starting quarterbacks for LSU this year. I don't really know where I land on that. I just think Garrett Nussmeier is going to be one of them. They open with Florida State. That's a Sunday night game. That's that game every year that makes us change the start time of late kick for the first Sunday of the season. So then they got Southern, Mississippi State, New Mexico. So that game at Auburn, that's a good barometer there. Who's starting at quarterback by the first Saturday in October for LSU? Let's head up the road to Clemson. This one has a lot of folks fascinated nationally. DJ Uiagalelei, woefully underdelivered last year, at least relative to the national expectation on him. Okay, well, he's back this year, clearly, true sophomore. And you got Cade Klubnik, a true freshman in his own right, now with 5 stars next to his name. For Dabo Swinney's part in this, the head coach there at Clemson, for all three of you unfamiliar, he was pretty emphatic during the spring in saying, DJ's our guy, DJ's our quarterback. He's given us no reason not to assume that he's our starting quarterback. And then you watch the spring game. Granted, it's just a spring game, but then you listen to some intel out of Clemson, and what you saw in the spring game kind of echoes what you get intel-wise out of Clemson, and that is, hey, DJ lost some weight. Good for him. I think he was at like 260 last year, wants to ultimately play in the 230 to 235 range. Is that going to drastically improve his accuracy? Because if it's not, I don't care if he plays at 160, 260, or 560. He's got to be more accurate, got to be more decisive. And if he's not, you got a guy who probably has the opposite problem, probably a little too skinny right now in Cade Klubnik, but let's see what he can do over the summer. Let's see what he can do in the fall. Because you and I, we watched this last year, and we went through Preview Magazine season, and we saw DJ Uiagalelei's face on top of everything, and we saw his name atop even some Heisman lists as a true freshman. Well, obviously that never came to fruition, but we're about to go through the same thing. Maybe not quite to that degree, but we're about to go through a 4-month stretch where you don't have any football happening. You don't even have practices happening. And so all folks have time to do is sit around and talk. So folks are going to work themselves up into a lather of defending one position or the other. The first half of their game against Georgia Tech in week 1 will be worth infinitely more than the next 4 months will. So try not to change your opinion a whole lot, is what I'm saying. If you're already on the fence about this, you ought to be on the fence by week 1. Absent some revelatory press conference from Dabo Swinney in mid-August where he says, he's seen the light, and so he's our guy now. Forget it. Cade, we're going to redshirt you. Absent that happening, just be loose. Just stay nimble on this thing, because what if they go into the half and it's 10-3 Georgia Tech there in Atlanta on a Monday night to start the season, and DJ started the game? I mean, how quickly will that drumbeat grow to find out what that true freshman, Cade Klubnik, has? I don't think there's any leader in this clubhouse nearly to the degree even that the head coach of Clemson claims there is. So rarely do I disagree with a coach on his own personnel. I just think it's a little murkier than that. Texas A&M. Haynes King's in this thing. He was injured last year. He's back now. Also, Max Johnson, the LSU transfer, the southpaw, he's in this thing now. Connor Weigman is the true freshman who looked really good in spring, and he is. It wasn't an illusion. He is really good. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not spending a lot of time talking about him on this particular show this evening because I do not think ultimately he will factor into the race for who starts the season at quarterback. That's what we're talking about, who starts the season at quarterback. Ultimately, he's going to be the guy there. But right now, I think it'll boil down to a Haynes King, Max Johnson race. Now, as it pertains to those two names, your guess is as good as mine. I had a feel going into the spring. I thought Haynes King was probably going to establish himself. He's still got time. He did not do that in the spring. And the limited sample size we had on a very windy day out in College Station in that spring game, I liked what I saw from Max Johnson a little bit better. And keep in mind, Max Johnson's new there, so it's a new system for him. He's still ingesting a lot, whereas Haynes King's been there a couple of years. So anytime you got a new guy who is comparable to the incumbent or the established guy, you start to ask yourself, okay, well now with summer 7-on-7s and 4 weeks of fall camp for Max Johnson, what could he ultimately be? If I had to lean, and I have no lean, but it would be ever so slightly to Max Johnson right now. That's going to change a lot because I can tell you I'm very much on the fence on this one. And I think Jimbo Fisher is too. It's not a bad thing because I'm pretty sure they believe they can win with either one of those guys. So that's not a bad thing. We're going to talk about a situation that is antithetical to that in a few minutes, but it's not the worst place to be in the world. What about Oregon? This is one where spring didn't deliver what I thought it would either. Bo Nix, Ty Thompson, and I'm going to throw Jay Butterfield in there too. I know, Jesse, I didn't tell you to put it on the graphic, but I'll tell you why I'm putting Butterfield in there. If you listen to our guys at Duck Territory, which is the Oregon 24/7 sports site, they're kind of saying the same thing that my eyes saw just watching the spring game. They cover the team on a day-to-day basis, but we're both singing the same tune. This is not even a race right now. Absent injury, that's Bo Nix's job at Oregon. The question now becomes, well, how about this race for the number 2 spot? Ty Thompson, Jay Butterfield, like who's going to be that backup quarterback? And that is not what I expected going into spring. Going into spring, I expected good for Bo Nix, change of scenery may do him good, but he's got a fight on his hands up there. That starting job's not just going to be given to him, and I'm not claiming it was given to him. I'm just telling you he went in there and won it, and it doesn't really feel like there was nearly the pushback that I thought there may be from Ty Thompson. So it really doesn't behoove us to spend a great deal of time on it. Like I said, outside of injury, I don't really see something happening between now and their week 1 game where Bo Nix is not their starter. Now, Nix came from Auburn, and at Auburn, this is a little bit of a mess right now in that quarterback room. There was no real separation in the spring. However, unlike some of these other places where it's ultra competitive with maybe multiple guys who a staff feels they can go into battle with, if that Auburn staff were honest with you, I don't know that they're confident with any of these guys right now. TJ Finley started for him at times last year, very mixed results. Zach Calzada's come in there in the transfer portal from Texas A&M, didn't participate in the spring. He's still rehabbing from a shoulder injury. I think that he suffered against Auburn last year. You got Robbie Ashford, who is a transfer from Oregon, who probably, if you watched the Auburn spring game, probably looked about as good as any of them. This is not an LSU situation. This is not a Texas A&M situation. At those places in the SEC West, you look and you say, well, I don't know who it's going to be, but whoever it's going to be, I think they're going to be able to win with him. You're looking at the graphic here if you're watching on YouTube. Ashford, he had a nice little spark towards the end of spring, but he transferred out of Oregon for a reason. He could not crack that starting rotation up there. Zach Calzada, last year, he beat Alabama, but also got hurt, and it's a new system for him too now, and so you don't really know what you're going to have in him. And TJ Finley, wildly inconsistent last year. You talk to people around Auburn, they just flat out don't feel like Finley's going to be the guy. Yeah, if he is the guy, they don't feel like there's a very high ceiling for the season. That's the feedback I get from Auburn. So there's this other little nugget of the fact that they got to play Penn State, LSU, Georgia, Ole Miss, Arkansas, Texas A&M, and Alabama all in the same year. Have fun with that, Brian Harsin. That's why the over-under win totals for Auburn are floating right around bowl eligibility. It's a tough schedule, and then you combine it with the fact that there are big-time questions at the quarterback position, and those did not get answered very much in spring. I also wanted to check in on North Carolina because, well, I love North Carolina. Drake May, Jacoby Criswell. Now, if you're not following North Carolina football, you probably have a perception of this team, and it was earned. They under-delivered last year relative to what I and many other people thought they were capable of. Okay. Does that always carry over? No. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. 2021 spooked a whole lot of people with North Carolina. So I think what the vast majority of the college casual public is thinking about North Carolina is, well, they won 7 games last year with Sam Howell. Now they don't have him. He's off to the NFL. Okay. Well, what if I told you I think they'll be better this year without Sam Howell? And what if I told you that staff probably, there's no probably, that staff believes in Drake May and Jacoby Criswell. They certainly like the energy they had on the team, in the spring at least, a lot more than they had last year. Mac Brown was not shy about talking about that. Drake May, a lot of you, if you follow recruiting, remember he was committed to Bama at one point. He decommitted, and he's been up there. He's not a true freshman. He was up there last year. So he came in with a lot of highly ranked recruits. A lot of those guys have a year's more seasoning on them, and I'm not just thinking offensive guys either. But also, I think this is a situation where their coaching staff is looking and saying, we have no clue. We could not make a call right now, but we think we can win with either one of them. Different skill sets, they're not mirror images of each other, but there's nothing definitive there. I just think that that's a situation where both of them can win for you. And they have, as an opening 3-game stretch to their schedule, Florida A&M, at App State. I can't believe you people keep scheduling that. And at Georgia State before they have Notre Dame and then they get into conference play. There are tougher 3-week stretches out there than that. I'll just say that. So it's a prime position to be a dark horse and be under the radar. That is an update as we sit here today in May of the quarterback situations all across college football.